Hey there, homeschool mom. Melissa Webb here, and I am so glad that you are joining me this week. Before I forget, please subscribe below. Hey, this week I want to talk to you about a concept that I was taught back in college called Into Through and Beyond. Are you familiar with it? Well, it was used in language arts specifically to help children really thoroughly explore reading. But I will tell you that this technique is really awesome just to use as a parent. So I think you're going to find this really super valuable. I want to tell you more about it. So let's get started. Into, through, and beyond. Sounds pretty simple, yes? Well, here's the best news. It is. It is simple. It actually goes back to some content framework that I was taught back when I was getting my teaching credential. And I still use this whole process as a parent, as a teacher, and I think it will be really helpful for you as well. Because honestly, I know that your time is precious, much like your kiddos. And being a homeschool mom completely means that we want to make the most of the time that we have, right? We've got our home education piece, but we're balancing all of the demands of running a home, all of the relationships that are around us, friendships, family, get-togethers, places we need to be, things we need to do. It's a lot. So if we can make the most of every minute, this can be really helpful, yes? I love this quote. Whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well. It was written by a man for sure, but you can see that. But don't you think this is something that a lot of us women are really striving for? We don't want to not give 100%, but there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many things we can do. So what's really important is that we are making the most out of every situation. And it's pretty easy to do when you know just a few little tips and tricks to make it efficient. So since we all know that time matters, right? We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Don't you sometimes find yourself wondering, like, how does she get that all done? Like, I know I have the same 24 hours that she has, but she's running circles. She's got like everything all figured out. All of her meals are prepped and planned and in the refrigerator. She's got frozen meals on the go for anybody who needs something. She's homeschooling her children and her lesson plans are already done for the next school year. Like, how is she doing it, right? We all know that person. I like to call her Esmeralda because I don't know many. Most of us are more like, okay, how can I make the most out of this day? So when I show you this little technique called Into, Through, and Beyond, and I'm going to show you how it applies both in a day-by-day experience, but also in a curriculum type manner, these ideas may be really helpful. I think the important thing to remember is obviously, if you are here, you're here to learn, right? You came to this channel, you're watching this video when you could be doing something else, but you are expecting some value. So that means that you're that person that's never going to stop learning. You always want to build and grow, and I am not going to disappoint you. We're going to do just that. So this ELA concept, ELA, English Language Arts concept, Into, Through, and Beyond, really goes far beyond ELA. I will say I have used this, like I said, just in life, but also in other classes. In history classes, I've used Into, Through, and Beyond. In science classes, I've used Into, Through, and Beyond. Whenever you're teaching anything, any moment that you can make a learning experience, Into, Through, and Beyond works. So let's talk about each one briefly. I want you to remember what the goals of each of these three parts consist of, okay? So the into piece is always going to be the time when we're building curiosity in our learner. We're trying to generate interest for them, and we want to make it personal because that's going to start to build a connection. So into is always referring to, before we get started, how can I get your buy-in? All right, that's always the into. The through goals, those consist of the part where we're going to be actively learning, right? Whatever it is we're doing, we're actually doing it, whatever it is. It's very intentional, and it is requiring full participation from the learner. And then finally, that third piece, the beyond, That consists of the goals where we are now checking to make sure that our learner understood the purpose of what we did. Takes time for some personal reflection, which again, in the beginning, kids really need that modeled and practiced together. And then also we want to make sure that in the beyond moment, we can present what we learned with someone else. Okay, so do you see how great these are? Into, through, and beyond. These are all great pieces. And if we always remember all three in our teacher minds, as a parent, you're going to be able to start to really just do this effortlessly. You're just always going to be like, okay, in my mind, I just do things into, through, and beyond. I bet you already do. And so I'm going to show you a good example. Let's just say that you've got some new neighbors who just moved in this summer next door. Okay, let's just go through this scenario. Before I show you the into, through, and beyond, I'll give you this scenario where let's just say you just saw your neighbors, you went out to check the mail, and they were there, and you kind of got to talking to them, and they're like, yeah, we just moved in, we moved 4 states over, we're pretty, far from home, we don't know anybody here. And you say, you should come over tonight, we're just going to grill up some hamburgers, so just come on over. So then you go back in your house, right, and your doorbell rings like an hour later, and one of your children goes and open, and your child has no idea who these people are standing at the door, and they're like ready to walk in. Your kid would be confused, be wondering what is going on, and really feel out of it. And that's the same in any kind of learning experience. If we don't give our children the into experience first, if we think we can just jump into the through, we're going to have them feeling off. Just like if that neighbor showed up and your child didn't know, you didn't communicate what was about to happen, your child would be like, huh? And therefore wouldn't fully participate and wouldn't get as much out of the experience. But let's take that same scenario, meeting those new neighbors, and let's use that with the into, through, beyond technique. Okay, so let's say into, go back, you're at the mailbox, you see them, you invite them to the barbecue, you come in the house, and now you say to your child, I just met the neighbors, and I was thinking I should invite them to come on over and barbecue with us tonight. What do you think about that? And you might have some kids, you're like, I don't care, right? But that's not building curiosity. We got to put our foot in a little bit more and say, really, I noticed that they have like 3 dogs, and one of them looks like a puppy. Aren't you a little bit curious about, why do they have 3 dogs? Or like, aren't you curious if they have kids, that you might have a new neighbor, or if they're an older couple, maybe they have grandchildren. You've got to get the buy-in as to why your child would want to get involved in meeting the neighbors in this case. Now, once that happens, the new neighbors come over, okay? It's time for the barbecue. And now you're in the through part of the experience, the actual barbecue. And this is important. This is where they participate fully. They're not sitting inside, playing on their phone or their video games. No, you actually have them outside. If they brought, a dog over, your kid's throwing the ball to the dog, talking to the new neighbors, especially if they have kids. You've got games, you've got cards out. This is interactive. It's very important that the through piece really involves the learner. That's so, so critical. And you're going to see the crossover in this in just a little bit. Okay, so now they leave, and it's the next day, all right? So now you're reflecting back on the event. You're talking about it as a family. Hey, wasn't it great to meet our new neighbors? They're really fantastic. But it also could even be like grandma calls, and so you tell her, oh my gosh, grandma, we met our new neighbors, and one of their dogs, he just has a lot of high energy, and I suggested that I walk their dog every morning and evening, and now they're going to, give me a job, and I'm going to make a couple bucks each day. And so you can see how it's gone beyond just meeting the neighbors. There's a bigger picture in the end. Okay, does that make sense? That's like the into, through, and beyond in like a day-by-day type of experience. Let me give you another one. Let's say that you want to teach your child about the importance of starting a savings account, okay? So the into part is going to be the first piece of the conversation. Hey, do you think you should have your own savings account? Dad and I were talking and thinking that maybe that would be something that would be good for you. Can you think of reasons why maybe you'd want? Is there anything big you'd like to save for? Oh, a new bike. Oh, your first car. You've got to get their interest, and you've got to make it personal. Again, if all you did is came home from a bank with a little, check register that shows like how much money you put in for them, and you just handed it to them, chances are they're just going to put it in their room and like probably not pay a lot of attention to it. You've got to do these in two pieces. That's the buy-in, where you grab their attention and you give it meaning. Then you do the through piece. That's the actual bank trip. Sure, you could do it online. You may even want to do it online. You can take students virtually to a bank as well. But there is something really powerful when you can to go to a physical location, talk to real people, set up the account, right? And you're doing it. It's active. It's not you going and doing it for your child. It's your child being with you. Even if it is online and you're setting it up that way, make sure it is a very interactive piece. And then beyond that is the conversation that happens later that night or the next day. This is where they own the ownership. I have a savings account and I'm going to set some goals, and I'm going to tell dad that this is my goal. By August of next year, I'm going to have this much meaning, and then talk about how do you think this is going to help you in the future. These conversations really cement all the learning that has happened. Okay. Now let's take that into curriculum, because that's why I really wanted to go with this. I just want to make sure totally see what I'm saying, that this into, through, and beyond is a very valuable teaching technique, and it's very natural as long as you're being intentional. Now we're going to take it to a good book. And I'm going to use the book Orange for the Sunsets. If you've been following me on other things, you know this is a book that I'm doing in our summer book club. Great book, by the way. If my book club is full or you're not able to make it, you may still want to read this book. Really great book. Okay, so in the into part of this book, this is where I, as a teacher, you as a parent teacher, would give the book breakdown. You talk about the author before you even read it. Find out, who is she? Where did she grow up? Why did she write this? Where does the story take place? Who's in the story? And what are the basic storyline elements? In this case, because it takes place in Africa, I would look at a map. Where is Entebbe? I would introduce some new vocabulary. It talks about dictatorship and expulsion. I would want to have those conversations before we even read chapter 1. We'd look at a map. I'd say, hey, here's North America over here. See where this red little dot is over here. This is in Africa specifically. It's pointing to Uganda. It's smaller. You can't really see it there. It's better here. And in the country of Uganda, there is a city, Entebbe. And so I would actually do that. I would actually show the children where it is, and we'd have a little bit of conversation before we even started. Remember, though, what was the goal? I'm building their curiosity. Why would she write a book about this? Generating interest. Oh, I know what it's like to have a friend move, right? You make that personal for the child. The second part, right? This is the through part. That's the reading of the book. This is an active reading assignment. Now in my book club, I break it down by every 55 to 60 pages. We stop, we talk. Okay, and you can do that at home when you're doing a chapter book. Break it into 3 or 4 chapters, stop, talk. The through piece doesn't have to happen all in one sitting by any means. This could happen over the course of days or weeks. But during the through process, there's communication going on. You're saying things like, can you imagine that? And you question things like, what would you do? If you were in that circumstance, what would you do? Or you develop the empathy of the things that the character is going through. That's the whole through experience, and it should be your deep dive. Remember, the goals of going through any learning experience is to stay active in the learning, be very intentional, participate fully. Finally, in the beyond piece, that's where the reflection is going to come in. And in a great book like this, it's good to ask a question like, how are you different after this story? What did you learn that made you a smarter person? Because that could be one thing that you're done. I'm more intelligent after this story. I'm more empathetic after this story. I want to learn more. I'm more curious after this story. You talk about what kind of impact it had. So there's a lot of inhumanity throughout this story. Great opportunity to have a discussion on that and to then teach somebody else something that you have learned. That is going beyond. The book is closed. The book is done. I did the reading, but I'm not done. I'm going to go out and I'm going to practice empathy now. Okay, really critical part. All right, like I said, this is a great way to make the most of your time. The next time that you're doing anything, whether it's just a home activity or your next assignment that you're putting together, seriously, my friends, squeeze out every last drop of knowledge that you can. Just keep these 3 words in the back of your brain. Did I go into? Did I go through? Did I go beyond? When you do, it is a beautiful picture that you are painting in your child's mind. And you're going to have them more engaged, more excited to learn, and it's going to be far more effective. All right, my friends, it is my goal to enrich your home education with bright ideas and timely tips. And that is what I have for you today. All right, there you have it. Okay, does it make sense? Yes? Okay. Now, for your teaching challenge, I want to give you a little challenge here. I want you just throughout the day today, start thinking about some of the concepts you're going to be teaching next year in your home education, maybe a history concept or a science concept. And I want you to really think about what you could be doing as your intro, which would be the into part of the into, through, and beyond method. And then obviously the through will be when you're going through the material, but then also put a little thought into some of the beyond possibilities, okay? And then just pay attention as you're going through your day. What kinds of things are you doing that you could actually really give an into before you get started in it and offer a beyond once it's finished? It really completes the whole cycle of learning. And for you, I've also created a freebie that you can print out and use, put it in your lesson plan book, keep it with materials that keep you inspired and encouraged, because honestly, that is my goal. So have a most wonderful day, my friends. Right on.